Buongiorno. Good afternoon, persons of quality. Welcome to the Aquinas Lecture Series. Our presenter today is Professor Miriam Pederson of the English Department. She is an accomplished poet, a Pushcart Prize nominee, and she is the one responsible for creating the writing minor. The idea for a writing minor was hers. Most of the classes that are taught in the writing minor are things which she thought of and created, and she has seen an entire generation of students come through by now. So if you're involved or have been involved in the writing minor in any way whatsoever, Miriam Pederson was there in the background, making certain that it happened. She is also about to retire from full-time teaching. Today she is giving a presentation, a reading of her work entitled Good Years, a poetry reading. Please join me in welcoming Miriam Pederson.
Thank you all for coming. I'm very moved by all of you here, and I think that title, Good Years, that was made up way back when this was first thought about last year, and I'm not sure now why I named it that, except at this moment, I guess I do know why. The time I've spent here at Aquinas with all of you have been good years. I'm going to read poems that are from different stages of my poetry career here at Aquinas, and I'm going to kind of bookend it with poems about luggage. And maybe it's because I'm thinking about traveling, but the luggage is maybe a little bit different than what you might imagine. So I'll begin with my poem titled Luggage. Someone lugs us out of the womb and into the world, and then our mothers lug us in a pack or in their arms, to and fro, wherever they need to go. Our fathers later lug us on their backs, or maybe out of bed for school. And then we lug our books in backpacks to our lockers, classes, home again. We lug our duffels off to summer camp and later lug our luggage out the door and off to college. After that, we lug old furniture, couches, bookshelves, to our first apartments, up flights of stairs, and down again too soon. We marry. Over the threshold, groom lugs bride, both lugging laundry to the laundromat, and then we lug our own sweet children into adulthood. This luxury goes on into old age, when what we do is lug our aged bodies to and fro, wherever we need to go. Stubborn, lumpy luggage we hadn't expected. These precious bags of skin and bones, not long ago lovingly lugged by Mom and Dad. And finally, all this lugging ends. Released from baggage of this world, no longer lugged or lugging. We now are hugged and hugging and floating in the heavenlies, so light and luggage-free. I'm going to move local now to this very institution. And I'm going to begin with a poem about some women I think you all know. They are the women of the mailroom. And this was written quite a few years ago. And so my dedication is to the women who have been a part of this all my career at Aquinas. And so this is dedicated to Connie, Mary Jo, Judy, and Maureen. Women of the mailroom. In the hum and clank and shuffle of the mailroom, the women concentrate on duplication and collation. They generate the three-hole punch, the two-sided copies on colored paper. They sort and stack and stuff cubbyholes, weigh and stamp the mail. They remind, listen, fix, and refix. That is what on the surface they do. But how to say what it is these women provide in the deep down of every day? How to convey the comfort of their voices, their sage advice on how to live, diet, celebrate, and mourn, their accommodation to patience, their wisdom of the world. We enter this domain each day and learn to be available and flexible and kind, to use common sense, to be human. We collect our copies, holding them to us like good groceries, and reluctantly walk out the door. I have a series of poems that I'm working on now, and it features this anonymous professor. And there are just a few of them I'm reading. I think I probably have about 10 or 11 now, but I'm going to give you a sampling of them. You might recognize someone who resembles this professor. And I'll begin with higher education. The grades are figured now in neat and even rows. Her students go their separate summer ways, marching to their iPhones' magic tunes. She snaps the dead wood from the old forsythia, a breaking satisfaction, a clear decision made in the middle of final blossoms. What has she taught these many years? What works under this unanticipated sky? Perseverant shoots, unfolding leaves, insist their way into the broken world, against all odds, against all GPAs. This one is titled, Professor Sits on Standing Committee. The pulling in of chairs, the chair seated visible to all, water bottles, a few scarves, a tie, 2 sweaters, the odd iPad, clearing of throats, a joke. The minutes approved, the agenda referenced, a few sighs. A motion, a second, a discussion, 3 yawns. Sips of water, some looks across the table, someone's cologne, a cough. A self-important monologue regarding the faculty handbook, the glazing of eyes, a cell phone bleats, a blush and a snicker, an earnest young face among the cynical seasoned, a call for a subcommittee, a painful lifting of hands, a reinvention of wheels, another proposal shot down, the opening of planners, the setting of timelines, some leave-taking behavior, the call for adjournment, the pushing back of chairs, some niceties exchanged, the thought of dinner lifting the shroud of what just happened. This is still part of the series, and it's titled Poetic Forms. Try a sonnet this time, keeping true to your own voice. No archaic diction, please. The professor has spoken, and students began their 14 lines as if the prompt were reasonable, as if the sonnet, brief, prescribed, unfolded like a bath towel and absorbed emotion, cleverness, music, a heartbeat. Jason wonders if iambic pentameter is required. Audrey thinks the form is easy and finishes it off like a sandwich. The professor looks over the drafts, checking for sparks, a graceful turn. Her hair needs cutting, her nails a clipping. She could use a good night's sleep. No time for the body, she laments, as love and longing rise from the pages, handwritten as if meant for her. Speaking of sonnets, this one turns out to be a sonnet about this professor. Actually, it's about her husband. It's titled, Professor's Husband Drinks Firewater While Watching the Golf Channel. And it's also the first line of the poem, so I'll have to read it again. Professor's husband drinks firewater while watching the Golf Channel. Could be the headline of her middle years. Something odd and metaphoric here. Perhaps to sip his fire in the rough will be a fire at least, will be enough. Sonorous sound of the announcer's voice, a pause, a thunk of club on ball, polite applause, are what she hears from her judgmental perch, where she's conducting her celestial research. Though situated in his favorite chair, he's on the fairway. He's on the air. His swing precise and strong. He's lofted a Callaway. St. Andrew's Green's a shimmer on this sunny day. It soars, then arches, drops, but not on Scotland's sod. It's landed ever so gently in the lap of God. This professor has gone through a lot. This one's titled, The Professor Keeps Trying. Fingers twitch and text. The classroom runs on electronic tension while she unpacks a classic. Now she's disturbed enough to scowl and wish herself to 1983 when blackboards held authority. With a sigh, she powers up her PowerPoint, colorful and bulleted, vies for their attention in the darkened room where she becomes the disembodied voiceover and her class takes on the eerie glow of screens up front and down below. The professor says the names Becky and Ben, Alex, Pete, Jay, Allison, with belief in their flesh and blood, their real lives before them unfolding, and she sees herself cutting invisible wires, startling the room from its virtual sleep, hands opening up the Norton Anthology to Blake's Songs of Innocence, page 133. Two more in this series, and this is titled The Professor in the Courtroom. She's forced to manage her own face while taking copious notes. She can hardly stand to look at the plaintiff, whose pious demeanor gives her the creeps, and the defendant looks so wrung out she wants to ignore his sins and send him on a cruise. While the lawyers blather on and witnesses offer their brutal testimony, she prays for beyond a reasonable doubt and examines the tired old question, what is truth? Keats says, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all you need to know on earth and all you need to know. And thank you very much, famous poet who died when he was only 26. She shudders and tries to imagine the whole spectacle as a musical, a thing of beauty. We, the jury members, hidden in the orchestra pit, wielding our instruments, the judge with his silver baton, our conductor, the lawyers tap dancing with top hats and canes, the witnesses a chorus singing the oath in close harmony, defendant and plaintiff in the wings, ready to burst onto stage with fingers crossed for their rendition of The Truth, a duet so heartbreaking and beautiful, it would be all you need to know on earth. So the last of the series is titled The Message of the Ants. It has an epigraph. We are closer to the ants than to the butterflies. Very few people can endure much leisure. That's Gerald Brennan. In the summer before she calls it quits, her retirement before her like honey from the rock, she imagines long days of reading, writing, walking tours in pastoral countrysides. Her deck chair positioned westward, shaded, she examines her unfashionable summer shoes, and then she sees the ants. So industrious they are, and so many, scurrying about this treated wood with ownership and purpose. That one carries something she can't identify, Another simply explores. But what and why? They carry and carry on bravely and seem to say hello, goodbye to one another with those amazing pheromones, polite, efficient little telephones. Her unfashionable shoes want to squash them, these creatures of non-leisure, invading her deck, admonishing her now to volunteer at a homeless shelter, to take in refugees, and work to make the colony prosper. For a minute, they bring to mind a poem by Whitman, and then she decides to forget the old bard and get herself a proper glass of beer. Something she hopes the ants will favor, send them staggering 2 by 2, and finally allowing her what is due. I know there are some folks here who have been on the semester in Ireland program, faculty and students, some who are about ready to go. And so I'm reading a few of those poems. The series has grown over the 5 times that Ron and I have been in Ireland with students. So I just made a selection here. And for some reason, when I'm in Ireland, I can sleep better than I sleep any place. It's just, I don't think it has to do with the drink. It just has to do with the sleeping conditions being just right. And, and it's best to be asleep when there's all this ruckus going on in the pub. So I'll begin with the poem, We Are Sleeping in Ireland. We are sleeping in Ireland, curled like the shape of the land. The shush of the flew, the rhythmic bleat of the lamb brush against our dreams. This is the sleep of buried potatoes, the sleep of fishermen slack in the drift of the sea. This is the sleep of the open hand, of the mouth, giving up desire to the dark. Everyone who's been there knows what Paddy Coyne's pub is. And every year, the Irish Country Women's Association gives a wonderful welcome dinner in the pub for the students. And the Irish Country Women's Association is getting smaller and smaller because they don't have too many young joiners of this association. So the women are usually older, and they still know how to step dance, and they are fantastic, and they usually give a demonstration. So this is really having to do with those women and how memorable they are, I think, to everyone who's been there. Paddy Coyne's. Old women step dancing at Paddy Coyne's pub, glow back into their youth. Somewhere along the stem of their lives, their men stopped watching the twirling skirts, the high kick in time to tin whistle and drum, and instead gazed deeply into the frothy glass. The women's hands join together. Their bodies weave the remarkable space they have created. Their eyes shine into one another's as they begin to spin, hair flying, feet drumming, the room a dazzle of long living women, embracing and holding on. From the windows of the back windows of the cottages, you can see this wonderful mountain that becomes a friend of everyone's, and it's Muilray is the name of the mountain. And I've written a couple of poems about Muilray, and so I'll share this one. And it changes every time you look at it. It has a completely different personality. Muilray. This morning she stretches lazily across our vision, wispy boa of cloud against white shoulders, a tease, blushing slightly with dawn's attention. Restless by noon, she powders her face and begins to pout, shadows ranging across her sensuous curves. Sulking now in the glowering cloud bank of afternoon, she may emerge before sunset, crowned, majestic, in shimmering white, or as a tent of darkness, a cutout against the Irish skyscape. Dusk finds her steadfast, a sister, saying her goodnights all around, before night takes her in his glittering arms and carries her away. Take a quick Hitchhiking, I think, is still okay around the Tullycross area. It kind of used to be okay in all of Ireland, but that's changed. This references that. It's titled Silence. What can I say to this old man who gives me a lift to Galway, who scratches his ear and sighs in a foreign tongue, who seems to want me to talk? The scenery is nothing to him, a farmer who wrestles the land every day with a sorry heart. I could ask about the weather, when it will break, what signs he knows of change, or about the peculiar white rocks lined up like sentries on the hill. Would this sound contrived, insincere? What would I offer from my ordered American life that would interest this man, whose worn hands form a landscape all their own against the blue steering wheel? I can hear my voice make an effort to remark or inquire, but it is too far away for him to hear. My words fly back to the comforts of their familiar places, some white classroom or kitchen where they fall effortlessly on the ears of half listeners. And on this road to Galway, I begin to learn silence and its rare camaraderie. The last of the Ireland poems I'll read is titled Re-Entry. And I guess I should reference this for people who haven't been there. The 12 Bens are these incredible mountains that some of our real trooper faculty have led our students on hiking adventures to the 12 Bens. And a banshee in Celtic mythology is a fairy whose wailing foretells human death. This is titled Re-Entry. Ireland, my deepest living sleep I owe to your down-filled winter nights. But each waking is a mortal effort to confront your bone-chilling slates, your verbal and liquid requirements. Reasons to re-enter the wide-awake world seem few and thin when the unconscious drifts in a green field, dense in the rhythms of safety. I need a cue, a rallying sign, to draw me from this tour bus of sleep. Someone rustling a cereal box, kegs thumping from a delivery truck outside the pub. Back to sleep then, until the banshee of the 12 Bens hurls me from this bed, points a crooked finger at my heart, and makes me swear to wide awake in such a lucky land as this. I'm going to move now to some collaborative poems. A lot of you know that Ron and I have, for quite a few years now, probably 20 years, have done collaborative work with his sculpture and my poetry. And we have, this might be a chance to just say this, we have actually some records of these exhibits in these little books that you can find in the library. In the bookstore. And they're in plain sight when you walk in the door. There are 3 of them. And so I'm going to see if I can bring this up. I think I'm going to show both images here of this sculpture. It's titled Troubles, and so is the poem. This is the interior. And the poems are generally displayed on some kind of plexiglass. We found some new materials for display now. So you can imagine the poem kind of being displayed right in the vicinity of the sculpture. Troubles. They are stones deep within you. Light and heavy, they rest, unstirred, for perhaps years before the event, the accident, the loss of what you know and love. Some will be unfazed by the tumult and remain in the fixed design of your uniqueness. Others will roil and churn through your days and nights, of endurance until somehow a settling, a reprieve, a forgetting or forgiving. This is titled Quartet, and it is now stationed in the amphitheater of the Art Music Center, and hopefully it will stay there. And it is part of Aquinas at this point. And I think when we were working on this, it was soon after my brothers had sung a quartet for our daughter's wedding. And I can tell you that I can identify each one of those as one of my brothers. Quartet. Sing it through again, lads. Loosen those bow ties and shake the rafters with what happens man to man when nothing matters more than carrying your part, keeping in sync, listening to your fellows with a sympathy beyond the range of song. In this fraternal spectacle, ego and ownership are overruled, and the rare negotiations of four-part harmony offer justice for all. This is titled Human, and you can notice there's a little vine peeking up from the back. It's a vine that runs along the spine of this sculpture, and if you look closely, I don't know if you can see from where you are, there are very small little faces that you can make out, I think. This is titled Human. Something moves alert under this sky, earmarked for survival. It talks and walks, remembers, making its way across the planet, taking ownership. It eats and sleeps, desires. There is not enough to fill it or calm it. It thinks and hurts, imagines. No grave can hold it, this skin and bone and beating heart. And there are 4 sculptures and 4 poems that accompany them in a series called the What series. And some of you who were downtown maybe during Art Prize saw it. And I wish that you could see the way the poems are displayed. Ron came up with this really cool idea of displaying them on metal plates. And the titles themselves of the sculptures themselves appear in the very last line of each poem. So you'll be able to tell which one. This one. A blue moon, the year of flowering bamboo and year of the locust. How the river bends, birds migrate, ants find sweetness. How my heart longs for something more. What to do with what I do not know. Watch me, Mom. A crooked somersault, a laughing applause. Attention like this we yearn for all our days, our best efforts bringing such delight. We're wrapped in loving arms and held for what we have to offer. The city is miles back. There is time to fritter away, making footprints, time to trespass, to improvise. Pick up a stick, chew on a blade of grass. Let the ironies be ironies. Do not try to figure out the earth or what you will wear. The tune darts through a neighborhood in the melt of March, slipping now and then on a patch of ice in shadow, gracing the early spring air. With a reel and a jig, medley of mountain streams, of sunsets, bursting storm clouds, of the steady ocean wave, curling back toward the familiar theme of what I cannot do apart from song. And the last of the collaborations I'll show is the one titled Becoming. And this is actually permanently set up in the diocese. Becoming. In the folds of each day, someone waits to enter your life, to appear in person or in a dream and change you slightly, as if a pencil sketch were being drawn of you and a line extended or erased increases your vitality, your presence in the world. Be ready for the entrance of a stranger or a friend who, after an exchange, lingers in the form of words, a look, a gesture, new filaments joining your own, becoming you. I'm going to read a few from my chapbook called This Brief Light, also in the bookstore. And this particular chapbook deals with a woman's life really from when she first contemplates having children until she becomes a parent to her own parents. And so I'm just going to read a few of these, and I'm going to begin with the poem titled Braids. Her hands separate the strands of her daughter's hair, feeling in its texture her own childhood summers, the coolness on her neck as she ran along the beach, her braids striking the air. Every day a grand expectation, a leaf unfolding before her eyes, its veins spreading in all directions. At bedtime, her mother released her braids, brushed her hair, and praised its fullness, its shining light. When your mother braids your hair, you must sit very still. You will notice things you hadn't before. A crack in the wall the shape of a teapot, a scuff mark on your shoe, the quiet breathing of your mother as she weaves your hair into countless indelible summers. Now, over the years I've been here, many of us have lost parents, and certainly grandparents for the students, and we know that that's a void that will stay with you always. But as far as losing mothers, there's some comfort here, folks, for women. What I found out is that now every day when I look in the mirror, I see my mom. And so she's still with me. But this is titled Mothers Newly Gone. Our mothers are leaving us. One by one, they flutter through the door as if we had expected it, as if we had prepared for this goodbye. We can hardly follow their recipes. Their remedies for flu, for heartache, are somewhere in the cupboard. The names of relatives to be invited are mixed in with the old green stamps. How can we, their busy daughters, sew on patches to make things last? What are we to do with those old compacts, these letters, cards, and cold creams? How will we behave without their disapproving frowns, their "listen, honey," or "oh, sweetheart"? We're standing up straight, we're being kind, and we've sent off the thank you notes, but they are minding other business beyond the blue, leaving us in middle age to sift through their precious lives for clues to who we are. And I'll read one more from this chapbook titled More Light. And I think now that we're in daylight savings time, it's helped the cause here. More light. From our porch swing, I'll begin again. From our porch, we watch the late June sky, pale in that space between sunset and night. Days will shorten now, fans of light closing one by one, a celestial tea ceremony performed by all the heavenly geishas. This is the time I feel least deserving of this life, its cottonwood fluff, its blossoms, its vacation photographs, casual and relaxed as flip-flops. Whatever prompts subtraction of the light will add the dark embroidery of dream to heavy wool of winter nights. Porch furniture stacked, the cushions stored. You and I will accommodate, but not without another loss. A child growing out of the house, a parent, friend, or house pet gone. In this solstice time, we feel eternal, an effortless, short-sleeved ease in leafy greens and friendly barbecues. We own a sweet forgetfulness that leaves will fall, that sun will age our skin, and that this light is ours so briefly on this uncommon earth. I'm going to end with a poem. I mentioned that luggage was going to begin and end the reading, and this one has a reference in it to the Bodies exhibit, and some of you have seen that incredible exhibit. It's so moving, and it stays with you. And we happened to be able to see it when we were in Dublin, but I know it was here in Grand Rapids. And it's titled, "The Body is a Suitcase on Rollers," which again is the first line of the poem. The body is a suitcase on rollers containing all that matters. It negotiates the roughest terrain, but someone, God bless him, has organized the contents in plastic bags. Systems churn and pump in there, pipes and veins, arteries, serving up and circulating. Then there are the nerves, each tiny, sensitive tributary, potent enough to send you over the edge. The body exhibit was packed but quiet as a library. We moved from body to body, from displays of particulars, healthy and damaged, to cross-sections, bones sawn with clean precision. Amazed and alert to our breathing, roiling selves, we walked into sunlight, pavement more solid to our precious souls, each joint and tendon performing like an orchestra. Someone is pulling this suitcase along, over bridges, through tunnels, across deserts and busy highways. It tears and rumbles, the zipper breaks, contents spill, are recontained. This miracle, this body, rolls along, at times oblivious, but right now, in the ink of this moment, its heart is moved, its brain sparks gratitude. Thank you.